How's it going, everyone out there? My name's Eric. Today I'm going to do a little headphone review of my new AKG K702 reference, what do they call them? Reference studio headphones. That's the very official name for them. Before I start, you can see on my monitor back here, I'm recording my audio into GarageBand today because I just updated my Mac to Catalina and Pro Tools 11 doesn't work on it, so I'm gonna have to downgrade back to Mojave. So here they are. I can throw in some B-roll with some close-up shots of these because I know they're a little far away. But here they are, the K702s. I just got these a few days ago. Let's start with how they sound. Unfortunately, this is a YouTube video and I can't put these on your head for you to hear how they sound for yourself. So I'll put them on my head. When I got them and I started listening, one of the first things I noticed is how wide the sound stage is. Like the scape of the sound, the soundscape, it just sounds very wide and big and grandiose, if you will. When you listen to any over-ear big headphone and things are panned left and right, they kind of feel like they're left and they're right? You can differentiate between left and right. But with these, your lefts kind of sound like they're all the way over here and your rights are all the way over here. Someone on Reddit described them as being like, you could hear, it's like everything has its own circle kind of in the mix and they're all differentiated and they all have their own space in the headphones, if that makes sense. I read a negative comment about that aspect. Someone said it kind of sounds too wide and they don't really like when everything is so differentiated and all the sounds are so clearly in their own separate places. I love it. I love listening to music and you hearing a floor tom and I'm like, oh, that's all the way on the right side of the kit. Or hearing like some clap track that's like way panned to the left. I like when they're in separate spots and it's less muddy to me. But I know that's a personal preference. The actual quality and clarity of the sound is, as far as I can tell, pristine so far. I mean, everything's very clear. The lows aren't muddy. The mids are there. The highs, the trebles they're not tinny or piercing. They don't hurt my ears listening to them. It sounds very flat and balanced, and they're not the best like listening, just, oh, I'm going to put on some Post Malone and enjoy this song. You know, they're not made for that. They're mostly for mixing. That's why the response is so flat. And I love that. And that's what they're marketed as. That's why they're called studio headphones. When it comes to the physical characteristics and the comfortability, which if you're watching this review, you know is such a huge component of headphones because you usually have them on for a long time. I used to wear these all the time. These are Shure SRH 440s. They're like $100 headphones. They cost like $100. I had them for, I just realized, 10 years, which is why I got the new ones. But they're a little heavy. They're kind of plasticky. They kind of grind on the top of your head. These are exceptionally comfortable. You can tell they have like these big, fluffy, cloud-like pads. They totally wrap around and encompass your ears, and they're very soft. The headphones themselves are extremely light for how big they are. Like, I would expect them to be much heavier, but they just kind of float on top of your head. It has this cool adjustable headband. You know, with most headphones, you get something like this, where you can adjust it on either side. But with these, just depending on what your head is like, this band automatically moves, which is really nice. You're able to kind of put them on and adjust them like up and down and left to right until they're in the perfect spot, and the headband just moves with it, which is very satisfying, honestly. So between the squishy ear pads and how light they are and the headband's really, it's like soft and malleable too. So it doesn't like I said with the Shures, there's no grinding here. It's just floats right on top there. You could definitely wear these for, I would say, just hours and hours, and you probably wouldn't, it's not going to hurt your head or your ears or anything. The only thing I would say, and I think this is true for any big headphone, like any over-ear big headphone, is that if you're wearing glasses, which I do about half the time, the pad kind of squishes the side of your glasses into your head. But that happens with most headphones I've ever owned, save for like these Audio Technicas because these pads are pretty small. But other than that, I think that's kind of just what you get when you wear big headphones and you have glasses on. I don't really fault AKG for that. I think it's just what happens. So these are open back headphones. So they have like these holes in them so air can go all the way through the inside and the outside, which makes them very good for mixing and listening to for a long time. With open back headphones, you get more bleed than with closed back, which means whatever you're listening to is going to kind of bleed out of your headphones, and the person next to you or the microphone in front of you will be able to pick it up more. So these are more for like mixing and less for recording stuff, right? Because if you're listening back to a mix and you're singing into a mic, you don't want headphone bleed because then it's going to show up in your vocal track. And that's where like the closed back thick headphones come in. These are more for your mixing and your mastering, stuff like that. All right, let's talk about the cord. The cord is detachable right here. Comes out, goes back in, which is great because if you bust your cord, you can buy a new one and just replace it. Some headphones don't have that, and if you bust your cord, I'm not exactly sure what you do. You probably have to send them back and get them fixed. But these, they pop right in and pop out. The other thing is that the cord is 3 meters long, which is exceptionally long. It's almost 10 feet. So you don't even need an adapter probably for most of the situations you'll be using these in, unless you're in a very large studio. But I could be recording vocals on the other side of my room and it'll reach. It's also a straight cord, which is different than most headphones. Most headphones have one of these, or one of the squiggly cords. I'm not sure if that's a positive or a negative. I don't see why it would be a bad thing, but that's what it has a straight cord. When it comes to specs, I'm not like a big headphone nerd. I mean, I know, like I said, I know they feel comfortable and they sound really flat. I know about what I feel and what I hear, but when it comes to the specs, these are 62 ohms, which people like to talk a lot about the ohms. I think 62 is a pretty good number because you don't need to power them with a headphone amp. I actually originally bought Beyerdynamic DT880s, I believe. Yeah, there's the 770, the 990 in the middle, the 880s open back headphones. I bought those originally, plugged them into the Apollo here, and I was like, why is it so quiet? And I kept cranking it. People are like, oh, they're 250 ohms, you need a headphone amp. And I was like, that's not my game. That's not my business. So I sent them back and I chose these instead because they're in a more normal range where I don't need an amp. They are a little quieter because they need more power supplied to them. It means you need to crank your interface up a little bit. You need to crank your output up a little bit to get them the same volume. But I think it's only 2 notches in my interface. Very manageable. At 62 ohms, I think you're going to get a lot of people saying they work better with the headphone amp, and I believe it. But I can tell you from experience, these do not sound bad if you don't have a headphone amp. Like I said, I plug them right into the Apollo. I give them two extra cranks, 2 notches more of volume than I would with the Sures or the Audio-Technicas, and that's it. They're not excessively quiet. They are driven well enough with my normal interface. I'm sure you can use them with your iPhone or just plugged into your Mac, and they'll sound fine. You just got to turn it up just a little bit to give it that extra power. The frequency range of these goes from 10 hertz to 38,900 hertz, which is an excessively large range. I think it's about standard for your studio headphones. I mean, no one can hear 10 hertz and no one can hear 39,800, 38,900. Check the notes. But that's basically ensuring you're not losing anything. All your frequencies are there, even if we can't necessarily hear them. But they're there, they're in the mix, they're in your headphones. So that's kind of all I have to say about the AKG K702s. If you're looking for a review to try to figure out if you should buy them or not, I say they cost me just over $200. I think they were about $225 on Amazon. And I think they're totally worth it. I mean, the Shure SRH 440, I had these for 10 years. They're only mildly worn out now, and I can tell that these are made better. They just feel better. They're just nicer. So I feel like if these puppies can last 10 years, I should have these for a long time. I like them. I told you basically everything I could tell you about them. They sound amazing, really comfortable. Definitely not for tracking, definitely for mixing. And that's about it. If you have any other questions, leave them in the comments. I'll probably start doing reviews with my other audio equipment too, like the Apollo, the microphones I have, and just kind of talk about them. I mean, if I have them and I keep using them, it's going to be a positive review. But, you know, if anything negative comes up, I'll definitely include that too for fairness' sake. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.